Welcome to the show, Tiyi Ayeva. It is wonderful to have you here today. Tiyi is the founder of Passelle, but I'm going to let her do some talking because she has a really interesting background. We've just done a bit of talking off camera, and I think it would be great to let her tell her own story. So, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about you, your background, and how you came to be the founder of your company.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me. My name is Steve, first of all. And actually, I also have a podcast, so it's very interesting to be on the listening ear instead of the interviewer's ear. It feels kind of strange to be talking about myself, but to give a little bit about my background, so I am French, of African descent, and I grew up kind of a little bit everywhere. I lived in the UK for a bit. I lived in Bhutan. I lived in Japan for a very long time, and I lived in the Solomon Islands. And so growing up, I always had a small interest in fashion. I was always interested in art. I took art classes very young. I took dance classes. So everything that was kind of creative. I did a bit of theater. I was a big reader. So it had never occurred to me that I would be directly working in fashion, but I knew deep down that I would always have some sort of creative hobby. And so I finished my bachelor's in Japan. I did a bachelor's in business economics. So again, very, very different, but still I had one thing that I knew was that I had an entrepreneurial mindset. I knew that I would create something. I just didn't know what exactly. So very young, I think at like 16, I had an NGO. I did a lot of different like programs which was related to advancing gender equality in Japan. Uh, I had some published articles for the Malala Fund. And then after my bachelor's, I decided to go to graduate school, which is very common in France to just finish your bachelor's and immediately do a master's degree. So I came back to France, and during my time in business school, there's like mandatory internships. So I did my first internship at Chanel, which it was not planned. I never thought that I would get into luxury fashion. And the reason why I got into it in the first place was actually because I was looking for a finance internship
Okay.
because of my like finance economics background. And the job market at the time, well, it still is, but was very bad. And so
Yeah.
I could not find an internship to save my life. And so I was just like, okay, let me just apply everywhere.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I know what it's like.
exactly. And so I ended up getting an interview for a business analyst position at Chanel. I did a lot of research on the Maison, which actually I didn't have to do much because I had already been interested in fashion, but kind of subconsciously I had pushed it down as not really an option for me because I had this vision that is like very Devil Wears Prada about what the fashion industry is like, which it's exaggerated to a certain extent, but it is kind of like that. And so I worked at Chanel for 6 months as a business analyst. And then after that, obviously, having been in the industry, it was quite easy to find another opportunity. So I interviewed for almost every single French fashion house,
Wow.
Yves Saint Laurent, no, Balenciaga is not French, but then Christian Dior Couture, etc., Christian Louboutin. And so I ended up doing my second internship at Christian Dior Couture, and I was very excited to be at LVMH because it's such a
Yeah.
huge house and also one of the biggest luxury conglomerates in the world. And after a while, my experience working in fashion was a big realization of how this industry works. Obviously,
Mhm.
there's a lot of competition,
Mhm.
and I had a personal interest in everything related to sustainability. So I would always like go around and kind of see what the other teams were doing related to sustainability and compliance. And I realized that there was a lot of difficulty in acclimating to the new European regulations. It wasn't super organized. And this is like not just within the two houses that I work for, but within the ecosystem, there's a lot of different groups with different interns and employees from different houses. And I would see that, okay, it's kind of the same everywhere. And I
Yeah.
started to wonder why. And in my school, actually, my one of my best friends, who is now my co-founder, she has a law degree. So we kind of decided to combine our different experiences and backgrounds, me having a fashion and business background and her having a law background, to decide that we would create something that would help fashion brands, whether that be big luxury conglomerates or also independent creators, in terms of actually dealing and navigating with this regulatory landscape, which is evolving super fast, especially in the EU,
Yeah.
but also communicating their traceability and their sustainability as a competitive advantage to consumers. And so that is done through two areas. So, one, we're building a platform which actually automates the creation of digital product passports,
Mm,
which is a fairly new, I would say it's in between a regulation and an initiative, because it's
mm,
not super heavily enforced for the moment. It is planned to be enforced by 2026. But it's the idea that you would have a QR code or some sort of digital thing that you can scan embedded in any piece of clothing or textile that is sold on European soil, that would actually showcase the traceability of the materials, where it was produced, what are the materials, are they biodegradable, are they recyclable, are there any sort of sustainability certifications attached to the piece of clothing or the brand. And it's also a very good way and easy way to communicate directly with the consumers instead of doing
mm.
huge like sustainability greenwashing campaigns, which a lot of brands have been trying to do, and I genuinely don't think that consumers are affected by them. And so, yeah, that is the whole mission of Passelle. And we actually just onboarded our first client yesterday. So
Congratulations.
thank you so much.
So exciting.
It's been a good run so far.
No, that's, well, everything you've said, I'm like, my sparks are flying because I am a law graduate, so I didn't practice as a lawyer. But that's why when I saw Passelle, it's Passelle, not Passelle, Passelle. It's
Yeah,
the French.
Passelle.
Okay. Just, it's so easy to butcher names these days. Anyway, but I saw it and I was like, this is so interesting from my lawyer brain. And then from my fashion sustainability side,
Mhm.
I was like, this is so needed. I have so many questions.
Yes.
The first I want to ask is, it's quite a difficult one, but how does it actually work with the DPPs, digital product passports? Is it easy for brands of any size to upload that information? So I understand maybe on a higher level because I've studied DPPs. Um, how easy is it for them to get this information that's needed? Because, like you said, it's the regulation, it's needed, it's compliance, it's
Mhm.
somewhere between the initiative and a law, but
Yeah.
it is upcoming. And sustainability laws, that's a whole other conversation, which, yeah, we can talk about that as well. But
Yeah.
I'm curious as to the on ramp and how easy it is for brands to actually provide the information that Passell would then automate,
Yeah.
automate the creation of.
So is it easy? I would say yes and no. And this is really something that is at the core of our problem solving with Passell, is that we want to be able to reach both smaller creators,
Mm,
independent fashion designers, and also big conglomerates. The problem with small creators and independent creators is that oftentimes, if they are working with external producers, It really depends on the infrastructure that they are dealing with. So, for
Yeah.
example, the first client that we're onboarding currently, he's a independent fashion designer from Benin. And so the information level that is provided by his producers is not necessarily exactly as detailed and complex as what is usually required by European regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the first step, is actually to have a call with them to understand what information they have access to. Usually starts very basic. And then if needed, the ideal would be to be able to have direct contact with the producers.
Mm.
Luckily, we have a team that is very multilingual, so that kind of cuts down that one barrier. But yeah, I think that it's easier for sure for big conglomerates that have audits, that have a history of, collecting data to a certain degree that is very, very, high level. But that is definitely something that we want to showcase to smaller creators and in fact motivate them to request and ask for higher level data because it will also help them in the long
Yeah.
run if they do want to expand their production, for example.
Yeah, it's all about data. Data is gold. Okay,
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense. I want to come back to a point you said multilingual. Do you speak English, French, Japanese?
Yes.
What else? Anything else?
Well, I am not bad at Korean and I'm studying Mandarin right now. I've always been
Fantastic.
very passionate about learning languages. I feel like it's something that came kind of easy to me, maybe because I was a big reader and I know that
Mm,
sometimes it can help with the, neurological pathways and things like that. Not to be too nerdy, but yeah,
we
I
love nerds.
love I love learning new languages and I think it's so important
Mhm.
to learn different languages if you are a business owner. This is just my tip because cross-cultural communication is not it's not easy. It's not just about learning how, oh, Japanese people are very polite, so I'm gonna be super formal in our meeting. Like it
Yeah.
goes way beyond that. And I think studying languages is a way to quickly and really concretely understand the way that different cultures work, which makes it easier to do business with them.
Wow. No, that's so true. And it's fantastic that you are doing so many difficult languages. I've lived in Japan. I'm interested in your education history. As we spoke about
Mhm.
now, you have the business and then the fashion side. You came across fashion sort of by a happy accident. But what did you start out as doing and where? Could you just walk me through where you studied and where you are now and why you chose where you live? Because I do think it does play a part in a founder's life and your journey because you're affected by the environment around you, which is already what you mentioned. Seeing different
100%.
things
Yeah.
kind of pushed you in the direction you're going, that you are in, actually.
100%. So I did move to Japan when I was 10 years old because of my mother's profession. And so I ended up going to a public school in Japan. So had to learn Japanese. It was not the super fun journey that I tell it like it is, but it definitely forged me to become very resilient because in my head, looking back, I'm like, I probably could have given up. But I stayed the course. I was in that school for 3 years. I graduated, um, and then after then I lived in the Solomon Islands for a bit, and then I moved back to France. So
Okay.
after living in France for a bit, I decided to apply to an international boarding school in Japan. And really because I missed Japanese culture, which is strange because I had such a difficult time getting used to it when
Yeah.
I went to primary school in Japan. But there's something about the Japanese education system that it's definitely very rough. It's very rigorous, but at the same time, I think it forges you to be very disciplined. And so in a way, I kind of wanted that because I knew that I'm a very ambitious person and I want to go further. And also, this particular school had very strong values about leadership and things like that. And so I moved back to Japan in a city called Karuizawa. I did my high school there, and
Wow.
then I ended up getting a full scholarship to study in Japan. So I went to Tokyo International University where I studied
Wow.
business economics. So that was my bachelor's. And while I was there, I also did like several internships. So I interned at Publicis, which is one of France's like biggest advertising agencies.
Mhm.
And that was technically my first window into the world of luxury because a lot of our clients
Yeah.
were like big luxury brands. And so I slightly became interested in how it works, how campaign works. I work for a client, but not in the fashion area at all. But I was definitely intrigued. And so I think in the back of my mind, it was always there like, wow, this would be so cool.
Mm.
But I definitely didn't think that I had the mold, if it makes sense, to work in fashion. And so, yeah, I graduated. I finished those internships. I did a third internship at Publicis, but in their New York office.
Ah,
And then I moved back and I started graduate school. So right now
okay.
I'm attending ESSEC Business School in Paris, in France. And I'm studying strategic management and international business, which I think is very like niche, but at the same time, very aligned with like what I want to do.
No, fantastic. And do you think, Passelle, what you're working on, is that the end game? Is that just the beginning?
Mhm.
It's a very ambitious task. Anything in
Yeah.
sustainability is. I know that from 4 years in the fashion tech industry, researching, talking to people. Um, the whole thing is very tricky for
Mhm.
fashion. It's so important. It's like the most important thing.
Yeah.
But there are so many different parts to it, as I know you understand, where it comes to profit and then materials and supply chain. There's so many moving parts. So I think what you're studying is perfect for the fashion industry. But for you, you are a hugely ambitious person. Is this the beginning? Um, is there something greater that you'd like to do?
Mhm.
And I'm also curious as to how you built Passelle because it's a digital platform. So maybe let's narrow it down.
Yeah.
Is Passelle the end game? And yes or no? And then how did you go about actually building it out? It's such a complex thing actually.
I
So that's
know.
why I'm curious.
So is it the end game? No. Although I'm super passionate about this project and I've been working on it like tooth and nail almost 24/7 for a couple months. But I think that for at least for a person like me, I can never say that any project I start is the end game
Mm,
because I think as human beings, we're meant to continuously evolve. So I wouldn't want to shut myself down on this. And I think the world is just moving so fast that in any day regulations could completely change and
mm,
force us to change our business model or fashion as an industry could completely change. Consumer trends are continuously changing.
yeah.
So no, it's not the end game. I would definitely say that it's just the beginning in terms of how we're building the platform. So
Mhm,
I have a main engineer who is very talented. He has a very intuitive approach, I would say, to engineering. And he knew nothing about fashion or about sustainability. So the biggest challenge I would say was to, all of these terms like DPP, CSRD, etc. These are things that people who are interested already would know. The
mm,
general consumer probably doesn't know what a DPP is, at least yet,
yeah.
until maybe it's going to be enforced in a more visible manner. Um, but so we took a lot of time with my co-founder and with our legal advisor, who also has a law degree, to draft out a lot of documents, make it understandable, have a concrete, um, almost like internal directive of what
Mm-hmm.
we want to do. Then we built a landing page. And this was the timing was very interesting because we actually enrolled in a pitching competition,
Mm-hmm.
which was created by the Women's Forum, which is an organization, and in partnership with Bank of America and Breadman
Oh,
Pratt. So we didn't have time to actually create our product before. So
okay.
what I did was I created a beta website, which I created using AI.
Yeah.
And I was like on that thing for like 50 hours straight, literally. We pitched it. We made our pitch deck. We got to the semifinals, I think, which was
Mm,
honestly pretty good because at that time the project was a month old. And then we found the engineer. So I
okay.
showed him our beta, which obviously was not great, but for 50 hours on AI with barely any coding experience, I pat myself on the back. And he was like, okay, I can make something like this. And he created something that looks a lot better, obviously. But right now we have a landing page and a wait list, and we're still building the back end to our solution. And
Okay.
the reason why it takes so long is because when you're creating a solution that is it's kind of like a one size fits all, but at the same
Mm,
time not. I want it to be a customizable thing. So it needs to fit both luxury conglomerates and independent creators.
mm-hmm.
And so this means that the data that our clients will be able to give to us needs to be integrated into our system either via Excel, which is usually what smaller
Mm,
creators use, or ERP, PLM integrators, those types of more heavy database systems, which most conglomerates use. And
yeah.
that's actually something that came from, I had a call with a circularity manager at Chloe, and he gave me such interesting insights because he actually told me that that is one of the biggest thing that most of our competitors don't have
Mm,
is they don't have a system that is integratable and kind of one size fits all in the way that any type of creator or any type of fashion brand can fit their data into it. So
right.
that is really at the heart of the solution. And that's why it's taking so long. And also because I'm a perfectionist, so I'm always like, okay, let's make sure this is good before we do our final launch.
Right. Oh, well, that's fantastic. It seems that you've done so much already. And isn't it so funny how we can do that today? Like you can just create a whole website. Like
I know.
it's like, AI is also a whole other can of worms. But I
I
think
know.
it is fantastic that you had your vision and with your co-founder and you could put something together like this and you could show your engineer, okay, this is my idea. I didn't build it because maybe 15, 20 years ago, that wouldn't be possible and maybe you wouldn't be here today. So I'm super grateful for that.
100%. And to be honest, like I know that AI has its own qualms, and I do understand that AI is not great for the environment.
Mm,
However, using it sparingly, I do see how much of a game changer it has been
yeah,
in the entrepreneurial landscape,
for
especially
sure.
because it has actually allowed people from non-technical backgrounds to thrive in a way that they could never have before. And I think
Exactly.
that one of the biggest, I'm a big advocate for diversity in entrepreneurship and in all forms, right? Also diversity in forms of backgrounds and ideas.
Mm,
And I
mm,
feel like having AI tools has actually allowed for more people with non-technical backgrounds, with different skills, with different mindsets to integrate the startup
yeah,
landscape. And I think that's very important. And that's creating more and more innovation.
100% agree. 100% agree. So talking about sustainability, and then we'll go on to our last question of advice, because
Uh-huh.
I think we probably could talk for another 3 hours about about everything.
Yeah.
Um, I do a lot of reading about sustainability. This magazine is about fashion tech, but there is a huge pillar when it comes to sustainability in fashion.
Uh-huh.
What do you think needs to be done other than this? What is going to be a game changer? Because regulations, they are a part of it. Consumers are a part of it. Education is a part of it. I myself am worried that there isn't something that's going to push the needle forward urgently enough. I'm preaching to the choir. You are like me. You're probably needing to see a change yesterday. That's why
Mm.
you created Passelle. But what do you think is going to be the biggest thing to change that can change the fashion industry? Is it regulation? Is it people? Is it something else that I can't think of? Yeah, what do you think?
So for me, there's like four words that come to mind and in two different ways, right? So this is something that I tell the creators that we interview is to be loud and proud about
Hmm.
your sustainability initiatives because consumers aren't necessarily looking for them, right? You need to be showcasing that in any way you can,
Hmm.
obviously in a way that doesn't feel gimmicky and like it's greenwashing. But
Mm.
I always tell creators if you're a fashion designer, even if, I feel like a lot of fashion designers are very afraid to fall into that sustainability, like, cage, and
Mm,
they
mm.
don't want to be perceived as sustainable creators, even if they are in the
Yeah,
way
I
that
know.
they make their clothing. So I think for consumers to be able to see that it's normal and not something to be applauded for, more brands actually need to be loud and proud about their practices. And
Mm.
then in the other arena, when it comes to fast fashion, I think there just needs to be a lot more naming and shaming. And this is honestly something, I mean, it sounds so juvenile to say it like this, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot because this is so random. But when I first started working in luxury, I'm a big hip hop and rap fan, for example, and
Mm.
I always used to say like I cannot escape my work because I always hear these like my like Chanel or Christian Dior Couture in a freaking song. And I feel like I cannot relax because
Yeah.
I always listen to music and I always hear it. So it's like I can never shut that off. And
Yeah.
recently I've started hearing a lot of songs that have the word Shein in it, the brand Shein.
Yeah.
And it's a way for me, even if obviously I'm not asking singers to be sustainability advocates, I'm not expecting that from them. But in a way, I feel like as a public, we also have a responsibility to name and shame and to kind of not upload the popularity of things
Yeah.
that are obviously not good for us, you
Yeah.
know?
That's so, I totally get what you mean. Think we're all so influenced by the media, social media, movies, songs.
Yeah,
It's just like I'm sure there's like a scientific cultural link somewhere, but it's so true. And I 100% agree. Once again, I really do think there is a responsibility for the people at the top to name and shame.
yeah,
And it feels it's not in my nature, maybe it's not in your nature. I'm not really one to do that. But I agree. I think maybe it's the only thing that's gonna maybe push consumers forward, along with all the stuff that's going on with sustainability. But
mm,
yeah, I think there's a cultural shift that has to change. And I've seen some arguments are like not everybody can afford to do thrifting, or maybe they don't have the time. I would say, you know, it's not necessarily more expensive to go shopping at like a secondhand shop, or maybe there isn't one where you
mm.
live. I do think there are other ways to do it. You don't need to be doing hauls from Shane, from
Yeah, but
anywhere.
actually, many people think that it's cheaper. But if you look at the long-term value and the wear that you get out of most items,
True.
it's actually ends up being the same price because at
Yeah,
some point you have to repurchase to keep having the same longevity as an item that maybe costs like twice or three times the price, but you'll wear for a lot longer. And
exactly.
I have been trying to also have that be a part of the communication work that a lot of these creators that we work with are doing. The first creator we interviewed, actually a lot of her um, reels and her content is just her literally comparing a piece of her collection
Mm,
with something like H&M or something and trying to see what the different materials are, how they last in terms of longevity,
mm,
whether there's also so many things like there's materials that are hormone disruptors for women that many people
yeah.
don't know about. So it's a lot deeper than just the environment and the supply chain and the labor exploitation. Obviously, those are factors, but consumers should also know that what they think is like a factor, it's like this long actually. So,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah. That's such a good point. Something I didn't really consider, and that's so true. It's actually selfish. Like you should want to buy better things for yourself, and that will eventually translate. But if not, if nobody I know not everybody cares. I mean, they should, but not everybody cares about the bigger picture. But
I know.
just care about yourself first. No, fantastic. So, last question is: if you could go back maybe a year ago, or even we can go back further.
Oof.
If there is a younger Tiyi, what advice would you give her in the fashion industry in terms of studying or working or success? What
Mm.
would you say?
The first advice I would give, and this is something that came to my mind yesterday, was start earlier.
Mm,
Literally, almost every single thing that I've done in my life, I wish that I had started earlier. And it's not to say that I'm old, but there's so many things where I can visibly see that I was doubting myself for months or even a year. Even Passelle, it honestly took like a couple months to
mm,
really fine tune the idea, which is one thing, but I think half of it was fine tuning the idea, and half of it was honestly like, is this gonna go anywhere kind of?
yeah.
And so I would definitely say, whenever you have an idea, just go for it. And I
Mm,
think even though I do feel that I have a personality that is kind of like that, I'm very go-getter, but I still take like 3, 4 months usually of kind of buffer time. And
yeah.
if I could reduce that, I definitely think that my ideas would go further than they usually do. And the second thing that I would say is, well, this is very obvious, but don't care about other people's
Mm,
opinions or external validation in general. Like
mm,
and I think this is very Gen Z, but living in a world that is very social media focused, I think, and especially entrepreneurs, we focus a lot on how many followers we have and all this. And it's like, really? I have never really been like social media viral, and yet I've been published by the Malala Fund. I spoke at the UNESCO. I was semi-finalist for this pitching contest, you know. So don't focus so much on this social media ecosystem. Of course, it's important and it's a way to get people to talk about your brand, but
mm,
followers shouldn't be the first thing that you want to say, for example, to an investor, you know. You want to have strong core values that like a strong personal brand and strong personal ideas should
yeah.
be at the forefront.
That's great, great advice. I totally am with you. It's kind of what I check for first these days, and I go back and I'm like, no, why? Like this person is doing a fantastic thing. They've got a great voice. They've got a great vibe. Who cares if they've got, under 10K followers? Who cares if they've got 100? Who cares if they've got 10 followers? Like if they're doing something that's worthwhile, that should speak for itself. So I 100% agree. Thank you. Very, very wise. Wise beyond your very young years.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much, T. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. This has been so valuable, and I have no doubt that your business is going to do so well with you at the helm. It's so important. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful for you for this platform. It's my first time being on a podcast as the interviewee, and honestly, it feels kind of good.